And the Grammy goes to Cowboy Carter.
Hey listener, you know how sometimes you just gotta tip your hat to the truly game changers? Well, today we're doing just that. Saddling up and riding deep into Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter album.
And buckle up, because it's a wild ride.
We're talking way beyond those headlines, folks. We're gonna lasso why this album is shaking up the music scene and sparking all kinds of conversations about race and representation.
Yeah, it's making waves, all right.
It's a sonic journey through the heart of Americana, but it's also a powerful statement about who gets to tell those stories, right?
It's like Beyonce's holding up a mirror to country music saying, hey, y'all, there's a whole lot of stories missing from this picture.
And the music world is taking notice, that's for sure. I mean, Beyoncé winning Best Country Album at the Grammys. A black woman hasn't snagged that award in 50 years.
It's mind-blowing, really.
Think about it. The last time this happened was back in '75 with Linda Martell, half a century ago.
It makes you wonder, what's shifted? What made Cowboy Carter break through in a way that maybe wasn't possible back then?
Well, I think part of it's got to be the way music's evolved.
Yes.
Streaming's blown those genre walls wide open.
People are mixing and matching like never before.
Exactly. Listeners are curating their own soundtracks, discovering artists they might never have found otherwise.
And there's this hunger for something new, something different.
Something that reflects the world we live in, the diversity of experiences and voices.
And Cowboy Carter taps right into that.
It ain't just about checking boxes though, right? This is a meticulously crafted album, a concept album that's like a sonic quilt stitched together from all these different Southern musical traditions.
Absolutely, it's like a history lesson in sound.
So we're talking Zydeco, with that infectious accordion and Louisiana Creole roots.
And bluegrass, with its twangy banjos and tight harmonies.
Beyoncé even throws in some hip-hop, creating this tapestry of sound that's both familiar and totally fresh.
It's genre-bending at its finest.
And the whole thing is presented as this fictional radio broadcast. KNTII Radio Texas.
Genius.
It's like you're tuning in to this down-home station and hearing this incredible mix of music and stories. It's so clever.
Beyoncé uses this format to pay homage to country music's past while also turning it on its head.
You hear snippets of dialogue from legends like Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson, but then
you get hit with these incredible up-and-coming black country artists.
Shabuzi, Tanner Adele, Willie Jones.
These artists are bringing something so fresh and vital to the genre, and Beyoncé's given them a platform to shine.
It's about reclaiming space, recognizing that black artists have always been a part of the country music story.
Even if they haven't always gotten the spotlight they deserve.
And folks are responding.
Texas Hold'em, the lead single, topped both the pop and country charts.
Practically unheard of. That crossover appeal tells you something.
It tells you people are ready for something that challenges the boundaries of what country music can be.
And the critics are loving it too. They're praising the album's ambition, its genre-defying sound, and its reimagination of Americana through a black lens.
They're calling it a masterpiece.
Okay, so we've got a groundbreaking album, critical acclaim, massive commercial success.
But then there's the elephant in the room.
The CMA snub.
Oof, yeah.
How do we square all this success with Cowboy Carter getting completely shut out by the Country Music Association Awards?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
There's this album winning a Grammy Topin charts.
And yet it's not even nominated for a CMA.
It's like there's this tension between the progress we're seeing in the music itself and the institutions that are supposed to represent the genre.
It really highlights the struggle for inclusivity in country music.
Are they ready to embrace this new wave of artists and sounds? Or are they going to cling to a more traditional, maybe even exclusionary definition of what country music should be?
It's a conversation that's just getting started.
And it's a conversation we need to have. But first, let's zoom in a little. Let's dig into the nitty-gritty of the music itself. What are those sonic innovations that make Cowboy Carter stand out? How do they contribute to this whole reimagining of Americana?
Well, one of the things that grabs you right away is the way Beyoncé blends those Southern sounds.
Like a musical gumbo.
Exactly. You'll hear these swampy, bluesy riffs from Zydeco slamming right into a twangy steel guitar lick straight out of classic country.
Yeah, it's unexpected, but it just works
Yeah.
somehow. It creates this landscape, like sonically you're transported.
Right. It's rich, like sonically rich and grounded, but also fresh.
I'm thinking Rattlesnake, that track. It starts with this fiddle, kind of mournful, and then bam, this funky rhythm takes over.
Oh, yeah. That one is such a great example of how Beyoncé uses the music to tell a story, too.
Right.
The lyrics, man, they blend that Wild West imagery with this theme of resilience.
Yeah, like a metaphor for the Black experience in America.
Exactly.
And you just can't talk about Cowboy Carter without talking about those vocals. I mean, come on. We all know Beyoncé can sing, but on this album...
she taps into something different.
Right. There's grit, there's soul.
It's like she's channeling those old blues and gospel singers.
Etta James, Mahalia Jackson, that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Artists who poured their whole heart into every note. You can hear that same raw emotion on Cowboy Carter.
Deep in the heart. Trail of Tears, those tracks especially. Oh, man, Trail of Tears, that one just hits you right in the gut. So emotionally charged, you know.
Yeah, it's heavy, and it's so direct, addressing the pain and trauma of the forced displacement of Native Americans.
It's a powerful statement, for sure.
It speaks to the album's commitment to acknowledging the whole of American history.
Even those dark chapters that we'd rather forget sometimes.
And she doesn't shy away. She uses her platform to amplify those voices that have been silenced for so long.
And it's not just the lyrics. She uses the whole radio show format to weave in historical audio interviews with, like, Linda Martell.
Oh, yeah, those Black country pioneers. It's like another layer of the storytelling.
It's like she's creating this sonic tapestry, connecting the past to the present, highlighting all these Black artists who paved the way. So let's circle back to that CMA snub. You talked about that tension between progress and resistance in country music. Where do you think Cowboy Carter fits into all of that?
It's tricky, right? On the one hand, you've got this groundbreaking album, winning awards, breaking records.
Shift in the landscape.
Exactly. But then you've got the establishment, represented by the CMA, holding on tight to a more traditional view of what country music should be.
So the listeners are embracing this new sound, this fusion of influences, this celebration of diversity.
Right. But then you've got these gatekeepers, and maybe they feel a little threatened by that change, by a shift in power.
It's like two different worlds trying to exist at the same time.
Yeah, almost like parallel universes.
And the big question is, are those universes ever going to merge? Is the country music establishment going to catch up to what the audience wants?
Or will they just keep drifting further apart?
You know, it's funny because you hear a lot of people saying that country music is all about storytelling, about real life, about shared experiences.
Right.
But for so long, those stories have been mostly white, mostly male.
You hit the nail on the head. And that's what makes Cowboy Carter so revolutionary.
He's saying, hey, there are other stories out there.
Other voices that deserve to be heard.
And those voices can add so much richness and depth to what country music can be.
It's like she's showing them the way.
Holding up that mirror and saying, this is what you could be. This is what you're missing.
Exactly. And it's not just about Black artists either. It's about opening doors for other voices that haven't always been welcome. Latinx artists, Indigenous artists, LGBTQ plus artists.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. The possibilities are huge. But I also got to wonder, what does it actually take to create real, lasting change in an industry like this? One that's been so resistant to change in the past.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's going to take more than one album, even an album as incredible as Cowboy Carter. It's going to take artists, labels, radio stations, award shows.
The fans, everyone.
Exactly. A collective effort to shift the tide.
So listener, what can we do? What can we do to support this movement toward a more inclusive country music scene?
Well, first and foremost, support the artists. Stream their music, buy their albums, go to their shows.
Word of mouth is huge too. Share their music with your friends, talk about it on social media.
Exactly. Let those gatekeepers know that you want to see a wider range of voices represented.
And support those independent radio stations and podcasts that are championing new artists, breaking down those genre walls.
Right on. Demand more from the institutions that have the power to shape the industry.
Don't let them get away with just like token gestures of inclusion.
Hold them accountable for real, meaningful change.
Have you heard from other artists in the country music world? Are they feeling inspired by Cowboy Carter? Are they seeing this as an opportunity to push for more inclusivity?
There's definitely a buzz. A lot of artists, especially younger ones, are excited about the possibilities that this album's opened up.
Like it's given them permission to experiment, to push their own boundaries.
Yeah. They feel empowered to tell their own stories, to collaborate across genres.
So maybe we really are witnessing the start of something new.
A new era for country music.
One that's more diverse, more representative of the real America.
That's what I'm hoping. Cowboy Carter has, like, thrown down the gauntlet.
It's up to the industry and the fans to decide what happens next.
Exactly.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the impact Cowboy Carter's having beyond the music world. What kind of cultural ripples are you seeing?
It's been really interesting to watch. Cowboy Carter's influenced everything from fashion to film to literature.
I've definitely noticed a resurgence of Western wear, but with a modern Beyoncé-inspired twist.
It's like she's given us permission to play with those classic looks, to make them our own.
And it's not just about the clothes. It's about the attitude, that confidence, that individuality.
Right.
And then there's that whole radio show concept.
Oh, yeah.
It sparked this renewed interest in the history of radio, like how it shaped American culture.
People are rediscovering those old radio dramas, that magic of storytelling through sound.
And hey, maybe it's no coincidence that we're seeing this huge surge in podcasts too.
Totally. People are craving that intimacy, that connection, that sense of community that radio always provided.
Okay, before we wrap up this incredible deep dive into Cowboy Carter, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the album's sonic innovation.
Okay.
We talked about the genre blend and the powerhouse vocals, but there's one more layer we got to unpack.
Who was that?
The way Beyoncé uses sound design to create this truly immersive experience.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's definitely something that sets this album apart. It's not just about the individual songs, it's about how they flow together. The sonic textures, the transitions.
Like she's building a world around you.
Right.
So listener, I want you to put on your headphones, close your eyes, and imagine you're tuning in to KNT Y Radio Texas. What do you hear?
Well, you might hear the crackle of an old AM radio, that static, and then the voice of Dolly Parton welcoming you to the show.
And then that mournful fiddle fades into a banjo as Rattlesnake kicks in.
And suddenly you're transported to a dusty saloon in the heart of Texas.
Or maybe you hear wind chimes, birds chirping as the album transitions to deep in the heart.
Yeah, evoking the vastness of the American landscape.
Those little touches, the sound effects, the ambient noise.
It creates an atmosphere.
It pulls you in. It makes country music sounds and feel different, more expansive, more inclusive.
She wants you to experience the music with all your senses, not just hear it.
It's like stepping into a time machine, traveling through the history of Southern music and landing in this futuristic, reimagined version of Americana.
And that's what makes Cowboy Carter so brilliant. It's respectful of tradition while also pushing boundaries.
It celebrates the past while looking towards the future.
It really does.
We've covered a lot of ground, listener. We've talked about the music, the cultural impact, the CMA snub, what this album says about Beyoncé as an artist. But the big question is, what does Cowboy Carter mean to you?
How has it changed your view of country music, of Black artistry, of America itself?
Those are the questions I want you to sit with, listener. Keep exploring, keep listening, and keep the conversation going.
Because the journey doesn't end here. Cowboy Carter is just the beginning of a new chapter.
All right, listener. We're back and ready to wrangle up those final thoughts on Cowboy Carter. You ready to ride?
Let's do it.
So before we hit the trail, I wanted to ask you something. What does Cowboy Carter tell us about Beyoncé? About her as an artist, as a cultural icon?
That's a good one. I think this album shows us a whole new level of artistry and risk-taken.
It does feel different from her pop hits, from Sasha Fierce.
Oh, yeah, totally. There's a vulnerability here, a realness on Cowboy Carter that's different. It's like she's peeling back a layer, showing us more of her Southern roots, her connection to this music.
And it's interesting because even though the album's so rooted in those Southern experiences, the themes she's exploring, identity, belonging, the search for home.
They're universal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They speak to all of us, no matter where we come from.
And I think that's part of what makes this album so powerful. It's deeply personal and expansive at the same time.
I also think there's a real generosity to this album. The way she's lifting up other artists, telling stories that haven't always been told in country music. It's like she's sharing the spotlight.
Absolutely. It's not about her own success. It's about using her influence to create space for others, to challenge the way things have always been done, to push the culture forward.
And she's doing it in a way that's starting conversations, making people think, and hopefully inspiring a whole new generation.
That's the legacy of Cowboy Carter, I think. It's an album that'll be talked about and studied for years to come.
So listener, as we reach the end of our deep dive into Cowboy Carter, we've got a lot to think about. This is more than just an album. It's a cultural moment, a statement, a a force for change.
It's proof that music can break down walls, challenge norms, and connect us on a deeper level.
We've talked about the music, the cultural impact, the CMA snub, what this album says about Beyoncé as an artist. But the real question is, what does Cowboy Carter mean to you?
How has it changed the way you think about country music? About Black artists? About America itself?
Those are the questions we're going to leave you with, listener. Keep exploring, keep listening, and keep the conversation going. Because Cowboy Carter's just the beginning of something new. This is a new chapter unfolding right before our eyes, and we can't wait to see where it leads.